The vast emptiness of space had never felt so crowded. The observation deck of the Galactic Council's diplomatic vessel bristled with nervous energy as representatives from 17 species huddled together, watching the approaching ship with a mixture of fear and fascination. Ambassador Trell, the senior Vosarian diplomat, pressed his six-fingered hand against the reinforced viewport, his normally blue skin paling to a sickly lavender. "It's still coming," he whispered. "Why won't it respond to our hails?" The unknown vessel, massive, angular, and unmistakably built for war, continued its deliberate approach. Its hull was scared with what appeared to be battle damage, yet it moved with precision that belied its imposing size. The Council had encountered new species before, but never one that arrived in a warship. "Sensors confirm it's powered by primitive fusion technology," reported Nalori, the Zenthan science officer. Her crystalline exoskeleton clicked nervously as she manipulated the holographic display. "Yet its weapon systems appear to be considerable." She paused, rechecking her readings. "And active." Captain Vex, a veteran of the Unification Wars, straightened his uniform and addressed the assembled diplomats. "The Council has protocols for first contact situations. We must remain calm and—" "Protocols," interrupted Delegate Cause of the Meridian Collective. "Those protocols assume peaceful intentions. This species comes to us in a weapon." The argument might have escalated further if not for the sudden silence that fell across the deck. The massive ship had stopped, holding position just outside the defensive perimeter established by the Council's escort vessels. For 13 tense minutes, nothing happened. Then, without warning, a communication request pinged across all frequencies. "They're hailing us," Nalori announced, surprise evident in her multi-tone voice. Captain Vex nodded. "Accept the transmission." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that sent a collective gasp through the observation deck. The being on screen appeared remarkably similar to several Council species, bipedal, symmetrical, with 2 arms and a head containing sensory organs. Yet the differences were just enough to confirm this was indeed a new species. The being wore a dark uniform adorned with unfamiliar symbols of rank. Its skin was a pale tan color, its face framed by short brown hair. Most striking were its eyes, alert, assessing, and unmistakably intelligent. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Alliance Vessel Defender," the being stated in a clear, confident voice. "We apologize for the delay in communications. Our translators needed time to process your language patterns." Captain Vex stepped forward. "I am Captain Vex of the Galactic Council. May I ask why you approach our diplomatic station in a warship?" A flicker of what might have been amusement crossed the human's face. "Where we come from, Captain, first meetings are best approached with caution. The Defender is merely insurance." "Insurance implies expected danger," noted Ambassador Trell, his diplomatic training kicking in despite his unease. "The Council has existed for 3,000 years as a peaceful federation." Commander Chen's expression remained neutral. "Peace is always preferable. However, our first ventures beyond our solar system revealed that not all civilizations share that preference." The implication hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history. "You've encountered other species before us?" Delegate Coase demanded. "Yes," Commander Chen replied simply, offering no elaboration. The Council representatives exchanged troubled glances. According to all their records, this region of the galaxy contained no other spacefaring civilizations besides those already in the Council. "Perhaps," suggested Captain Vex carefully, "we should arrange a proper meeting. Our station has suitable facilities for diplomatic discussions." Commander Chen nodded. "Agreed. I'll bring a small delegation aboard in 1 hour. With your permission, the Defender will maintain its current position." After the transmission ended, the observation deck erupted in agitated discussion. Ambassador Trell pulled Captain Vex aside. "Did you notice?" the ambassador asked quietly. "They didn't seem surprised by us at all. Not by our appearance, our technology, Nothing. I noticed, Vex confirmed grimly. And that ship, those weren't manufacturing imperfections on the hull. Those were battle scars. What kind of species emerges from their world already battle-hardened? Trell wondered. And who have they been fighting that we don't know about? Before Vex could respond, Nalori approached with fresh data on her display. Captain, I've completed a deeper scan of the human vessel. The results are concerning. Explain, ordered Vex. Their hull contains alloys we can't identify. Their propulsion system operates on principles that contradict several of our established scientific models. And there's something else. She hesitated. The damage patterns on their ship. They're consistent with weapons technology that doesn't match any known species. Ambassador Trell's skin paled further. Are you suggesting there are other unknown civilizations out there? Hostile ones. I'm suggesting, Nalori replied carefully, that either these humans have fought something we've never encountered, or they've developed weapons we can't comprehend. Finished Vex. The diplomatic team watched through the viewport as a small shuttle detached from the massive human vessel and began its approach to the station. None of them spoke the thought that weighed on all their minds. The Galactic Council had always believed itself to be the pinnacle of civilization in this sector. They had approached first contact with a sense of benevolent superiority, expecting to guide a fledgling species into the galactic community. Instead, humanity had arrived on their own terms, in a ship built for war, carrying secrets of unknown conflicts. And in less than an hour, they would be face to face with these humans, attempting to unravel the mystery of a species that had somehow fought battles in a supposedly peaceful galaxy. As the human shuttle drew closer, Ambassador Trell couldn't shake a disturbing thought. What if humanity wasn't seeking to join the Council? What if they had come to warn them? The station's main docking bay had been hastily converted into a reception area. Captain Vex insisted on following first contact protocols, despite the unusual circumstances. Ceremonial guards in dress uniform, representatives from each council species, and a display of cultural artifacts meant to showcase the diversity and achievements of their united civilizations. Admiral Shorin, who had arrived from the Council's defensive fleet just minutes earlier, paced the length of the bay. A career military officer from the warlike Draxian species, Shorin was both impressed and disturbed by the human vessel. You realize what this means, don't you? He muttered to Captain Vex as they waited. Our entire defensive doctrine is based on the assumption that we have technological superiority over any emerging species. This human ship challenges everything. Let's not jump to conclusions, Vex cautioned, though his own misgivings were evident in his stiff posture. One advanced ship doesn't mean one ship that they were willing to send. Shorin interrupted. What does that tell you about what they've kept in reserve? Before Vex could respond, the station's announcement system chimed. Human shuttle docking sequence initiated. The assembled council representatives straightened, putting on their best diplomatic faces as the airlock cycled. When the doors finally slid open, the human delegation emerged, 5 individuals of varying appearances, all wearing similar dark uniforms with different insignia. Commander Chen led the group, her bearing confident but not aggressive. She was flanked by 2 others who moved with the unmistakable alertness of security personnel, though they carried no visible weapons. Behind them came 2 figures whose uniforms bore different markings. One carried what appeared to be scientific equipment, while the other's attire suggested diplomatic functions. Captain Vex. Commander Chen greeted with a slight nod. Thank you for hosting us. Allow me to introduce my team. Lieutenant Raj Singh and Lieutenant Thomas Wilson. Security, Dr. Olivia Hayes, Xenobiology and First Contact Specialist, and David Rodriguez, Diplomatic Liaison. The human called Rodriguez stepped forward with a warm smile that somehow seemed both genuine and calculated. On behalf of the United Earth Alliance, we extend greetings and hopes for peaceful relations. Ambassador Trell performed the formal council welcome, introducing each species representative in turn. The humans showed appropriate interest, but none of the awe or surprise typically expected from a species making first contact with a galactic community. As the formalities concluded, they moved to the conference room prepared for negotiations. The station's transparent ceiling offered a dramatic view of both the human battleship and the Council's defensive fleet maintaining their respectful distance from each other. Before we begin formal discussions, Ambassador Trell said once everyone was seated, "Perhaps you could tell us more about your species and your experiences in space. Your arrival suggests a history we're unaware of." Rodriguez and Chen exchanged a glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. Humanity achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 47 years ago by your time measurement, Rodriguez began. Our initial explorations were conducted with scientific vessels, as you might expect. And yet you come to us in a warship, noted Admiral Shorin bluntly. Commander Chen's expression hardened slightly. The Defender was originally commissioned as an exploration vessel. Its modifications came later, out of necessity. What necessity? Pressed Shorin. Again, that look between the humans. Dr. Hayes, the xenobiologist, leaned forward with a sigh. Approximately 8 years after our first FTL flight, one of our colony ships went missing, she explained. When we found it 6 months later, we discovered that the crew and colonists had been, she paused, seeming to search for an appropriate term, harvested. A chill settled over the council representatives. Harvested, repeated Nalori, the crystalline science officer. Their bodies had been systematically disassembled, Commander Chen stated flatly. Organs removed with surgical precision, some while still alive. The conference room fell silent. Such brutality was unknown in council space, where even historical conflicts had been governed by ethical conventions. We tracked the responsible party, continued Chen, a species that called themselves the Vrikari. They explained that they considered us a resource, not a sentient species. When we objected to this classification, they responded with force. The First Contact War, Rodriguez added quietly. It lasted 3 years. We lost 2 colony worlds and nearly 11 million lives before we developed weapons capable of deterring them. Admiral Shorin leaned forward, professional interest overriding his suspicion. And these Vrikari, where are they now? Maintaining a respectful distance from human space. Commander Chen replied with a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. We established boundaries they've chosen not to test again. And yet, Ambassador Trell interjected, struggling to reconcile this information with known galactic maps. We have no records of this species. Our exploration vessels have charted this entire sector. That's one reason for our visit, Rodriguez explained. Your exploration patterns and territory claims suggest you've approached from galactic north. The Vrikari domain lies to the galactic southwest of Earth, as does the territory of the Meridic Hive and the Toshan Dominion. The names fell like stones into still water, creating ripples of confusion and concern among the council members. 3 unknown spacefaring civilizations, at least one demonstrably hostile, existing beyond their knowledge. Nellori's crystalline form chimed in agitation. This is impossible. Our long-range surveys would have detected signs of advanced civilization. Dr. Hayes removed a small device from her equipment case and placed it on the conference table. With a few gestures, she activated a holographic display showing a 3-dimensional star map. We believe the explanation lies in this region. She indicated a cloudy section of space, what you call the Cygnus Veil. Its unique radiation properties create a natural dampening effect on certain scan technologies. We only discovered this when attempting to track Vrikari movements. The council representatives studied the map with growing unease. If the human information was accurate, a significant portion of what they'd believed to be uninhabited space potentially contained multiple advanced civilizations. And these other species, Captain Vex asked cautiously, the Meridic and Toshan, are they also hostile? The Meridic Hive is xenophobic, but not expansionist, Commander Chen explained. They'll defend their territory aggressively, but haven't shown interest in conquest. The Toshan, she hesitated, are more complicated. They're traders and information brokers. Not overtly hostile, but not trustworthy either. Admiral Shorin's eyes narrowed. So humanity has established diplomatic relations with these species. We've established boundaries, corrected Commander Chen. There's a difference. Ambassador Trell's diplomatic training couldn't fully mask his growing alarm. And now you've come to establish boundaries with the Council as well. Rodriguez raised his hands in a conciliatory gesture. No, Ambassador. We've come to open dialogue precisely because the Council appears different from other powers we've encountered. Your cooperative structure, your emphasis on mutual benefit rather than domination, these suggest potential for genuine alliance. An alliance, Admiral Shorin repeated skeptically, against these other species. Commander Chen's gaze was steady. Against whatever comes next, Admiral. The galaxy is evidently more crowded and more dangerous than either of us realized. The initial meeting lasted nearly 6 hours, stretching well beyond the scheduled time as both sides grappled with revelations that reshuffled their understanding of galactic politics. When they finally adjourned, the Council representatives retreated to private chambers for urgent deliberation, while the human delegation returned to their shuttle with a promise to continue discussions the following day. Back on the Defender, Commander Chen shed the diplomatic restraint she'd maintained throughout the meeting. In the ship's secure briefing room, she pounded her fist against the situation table. They're completely unprepared, she stated flatly to her senior staff. Their entire defense doctrine is based on technological superiority and overwhelming numbers. They've never faced an adversary that didn't play by their rules. Lieutenant Sting nodded grimly. Their ships are impressive, but designed for coordination, not individual survival. One Vrikari hunter-killer could tear through half their fleet before they adapted their tactics. And they have no idea what's coming, added Rodriguez, looking haggard as he scrolled through his notes. Their reaction when we mentioned the Cygnus Veil. They genuinely didn't know. Dr. Hayes projected the data they'd gathered on Council species across the briefing room's displays. Their biological diversity is remarkable. 17 distinct evolutionary paths, each contributing specific advantages to their collective. With humanity added to the mix, we cooled. We're getting ahead of ourselves, Chen interrupted. We don't have confirmation yet. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Communications Officer Torres, who had been conspicuously quiet throughout the debriefing. He looked up from his data pad, his expression grave. The Deep Space Relay just received the packet from our scout ships, he reported. It's confirmed, Commander. The Vrikari fleet has changed course. They're heading toward Council space. Chen closed her eyes briefly. This was exactly what they had feared. Timeline. At their current velocity, 3 months at most. And their numbers. Torres hesitated. Larger than anything we've encountered. At least 80 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity had prevailed against the Vrikari only through desperate innovation and terrible sacrifice. Even now, with their improved technology, this fleet would represent an existential threat to Earth and her colonies. They must have followed our exploration patterns, Chen said quietly. Found easier prey. The Council has numbers, Lieutenant Wilson pointed out. Over 300 vessels in this sector alone. Numbers won't matter, Singh countered. Not against Vrikari harvest ships. Not if they don't understand what they're fighting. Commander Chen straightened her uniform, decision made. Torres, prepare a full data package on Vrikari capabilities, tactics, and weaknesses. Everything we've learned, everything we've developed. Hayes, compile biological data on Vrikari physiology, especially vulnerability points. Wilson, tactical simulations showing Council fleet configurations against Vrikari attack patterns. Commander, Rodriguez interjected carefully. Are we certain this is the right approach? The prime directive of non-interference was established before we understood the nature of our galaxy. Chen finished firmly. This isn't about interference. It's about survival. Theirs and potentially ours. Chen turned toward the viewport, where the Council's diplomatic station hung against the backdrop of stars. We need to convince them quickly, and that means we need to show them everything. The Council's emergency session had devolved into factional arguments. The military contingent, led by Admiral Shorin, advocated for immediate security measures and restriction of human movement within Council space until their claims could be verified. The diplomatic faction, headed by Ambassador Trell, pushed for continued engagement and information sharing. Meanwhile, Captain Vex and Science Officer Nalori had been tasked with verifying the humans' claims about the Cygnus Veil. They worked through the night, recalibrating long-range sensors based on parameters derived from the human star charts. As the station's artificial day cycle dawned, Nalori burst into the council chamber, interrupting the heated debate. Her crystalline form vibrated with urgency, creating a chiming sound that immediately silenced the room. The humans were right, she announced without preamble. We've been scanning incorrectly. When adjusted for the radiation interference patterns they identified, we're detecting significant energy signatures beyond the veil. Multiple civilization markers, advanced propulsion trails, artificial structures, all previously invisible to our scanners. The chamber erupted in confusion until Admiral Shorin's authoritative voice cut through the chaos. What about their claims of hostile species? Any evidence of this? Vrikari threat? Nalori's crystalline surface dimmed slightly. Inconclusive at this range. We would need to send scout ships beyond the veil for detailed readings. Which would take weeks, Captain Vex added, and potentially alert these civilizations to our interest. The debate might have continued indefinitely, if not for the station's alert system suddenly blaring to life. The main view screen activated automatically, showing the human shuttle rapidly approaching from the Defender. They're requesting emergency docking, reported the communications officer. Commander Chen is invoking something called Imminent Threat Protocol. Ambassador Trell and Admiral Shorin exchanged concerned glances before Shorin gave the authorization. Within minutes, the human delegation was escorted into the chamber, their earlier diplomatic composure replaced by urgent purpose. Commander Chen wasted no time. We've received intelligence that requires immediate attention. A Vrikari battle fleet has altered course and is now heading directly toward Council space. She nodded to Dr. Hayes, who activated a holographic display showing ship movements across a three-dimensional star map. The Council representatives watched in growing horror as a massive fleet's trajectory was tracked, its path clearly leading toward their territories. How did you obtain this information? Admiral Shorin demanded, professional suspicion warring with evident concern. We maintained scout vessels near Vrikari space after the war, Chen explained without apology. Standard containment protocol. And you believe they're coming for us. Why? Asked Ambassador Trell. Ken's expression hardened. The Vrikari are resource hunters. They locate, isolate, and harvest vulnerable species. You have 17 different species living across dozens of worlds, with biological diversity they would consider valuable. The implication sent a wave of revulsion through the chamber. But our defense fleet, began one representative, is unprepared for their tactics. Chen interrupted. The Vrikari don't engage in conventional warfare. They use biological weapons tailored to target specific physiologies. They deploy harvest ships that can extract resources, including living beings, while under fire. Their hull technology absorbs energy weapons and redirects the power to their own systems. Lieutenant Singh stepped forward. We've prepared tactical briefings based on our experiences fighting them. With your permission, we can begin working with your military commanders immediately to adapt your defensive capabilities. Admiral Shorin studied the humans with new eyes, reassessing. You're offering military assistance, technology sharing. We're offering everything we have, Commander Chen stated firmly. Weapons specifications, tactical data, Biological countermeasures. Everything we developed during and after the war. Why? Challenged a Meridian representative. What do humans gain from this? Chen's gaze swept the room. The Vrikari destroyed 2 of our colony worlds before we managed to drive them back. 11 million lives lost. If they establish a foothold in Council space, with access to your resources and biological diversity, they'll become too powerful for any single civilization to oppose. This isn't charity, it's survival. A tense silence fell over the chamber as the Council representatives absorbed this information. Admiral Shorin was the first to recover, military pragmatism overriding political caution. How much time do we have? 3 months, maximum, Chen replied. Possibly less if they increase velocity. And you believe your technology will be effective against them. Chen's expression was grim but determined. It was, eventually, at a terrible cost. But if we combine human innovation with Council resources and begin preparations immediately, those costs can be significantly reduced. Admiral Shorin turned to the Council representatives. I request emergency powers to coordinate with the human military advisors and implement defensive preparations across all Council worlds. As debate erupted again among the Council factions, Commander Chen moved closer to Captain Vex and spoke in a lower voice. There's something else you should know, she said quietly. Something we haven't told the others yet. Vex studied her face, noting the tension around her eyes. What is it? Chen glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. The Vrikari fleet. It's not just larger than anything we fought before. It's larger than anything we've detected in their territory, ever. And it's moving with purpose, not on a harvesting sweep. Meaning they're not just hunting. Chen replied grimly. They're running from something. Captain Vex felt the blood drain from his face. Running from something. What could possibly? The station's alarm system suddenly blared to life again, cutting off his question. The main view screen flickered, displaying the Defender's first officer, his expression tight with urgency. Commander Chen, we're detecting a spatial anomaly at the edge of the system. Energy signature unknown, but it's massive and growing. Chen spun toward the screen, professional composure momentarily shattered. That's impossible. They can't be here already. Admiral Shorin stepped forward. What is this? Another of your species we should know about. Before Chen could respond, Science Officer Nalori rushed to her monitoring station. Confirmed. Massive gravitational distortion forming at coordinates 227 Mark 43. It's unlike anything in our records. The Council chamber descended into chaos as representatives demanded answers, security protocols, evacuations. Chen signaled her team with a sharp gesture, and they assembled around her with practiced efficiency. Lieutenant Singh, return to the Defender and prepare defensive systems. Rodriguez, coordinate with Captain Vex for potential station evacuation. Hayes with me. She turned to Admiral Shorin. Admiral, I suggest you mobilize whatever combat vessels you have in the immediate vicinity. Shorin's eyes narrowed. You know what this is? It wasn't a question. Chen hesitated, then nodded curtly. We've encountered similar phenomena twice before. Both times preceded Vrikari fleet movements. You said we had months. Though we should have, Chen insisted. Unless, her eyes widened slightly, unless they've mastered it. Mastered what? Demanded Ambassador Trell, struggling to maintain diplomatic composure amid the growing panic. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her scientific detachment a stark contrast to the tension around her. Spatial folding, a theoretical method of faster-than-light travel that bypasses normal space entirely. We discovered evidence the Vrikari were experimenting with it, but their early attempts were catastrophic failures. Catastrophic how? Asked Captain Vex. The test vessels were torn apart at the atomic level. Hayes replied grimly. We recovered only molecular debris. The station shuddered suddenly, lights flickering as power fluctuated throughout the structure. The view screen image distorted, then stabilized to show a massive, swirling vortex of energy forming in space. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying. A whirlpool of twisted space-time that seemed to devour light itself. All vessels, defensive positions, ordered Admiral Shorin, military training overriding political caution. Emergency protocols are now in effect. As the council representatives were hurriedly evacuated from the chamber, Shen grabbed Hayes by the arm. This doesn't make sense. The energy requirements for stable spatial folding are beyond anything the Fricari should be capable of. Unless they found a new energy source, Hayes suggested, her scientific mind racing despite the danger. Or a new ally. The words hung between them like a physical weight. Chen's communicator chirped, and Lieutenant Singh's voice came through with unmistakable alarm. "Commander, you need to see this. The Defender's deep space sensors are picking up signatures emerging from the anomaly. They're not Fricari." The main view screen shifted to show the Defender's sensor readings. As they watched, vessels began emerging from the spatial tier. Sleek, asymmetrical ships that moved with unsettling grace. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them appear as mobile voids against the backdrop of stars. "What are we looking at?" whispered Captain Vex. Chen's face had gone pale. "That's the real reason we came to find the Council. 3 months ago, we detected a new species operating at the edges of Fricari space. We designated them the Void Dancers based on their movement patterns. They appeared to be studying the Fricari, not engaging them. Then, 2 weeks ago, all Fricari communications went silent along their outer colonial perimeter. You knew about this threat and didn't tell us immediately." Shorin's voice was dangerously quiet. "We had no confirmation they were hostile." Chen defended. "Only that they were advanced and unknown. We came here to warn you about both potential threats, but the Fricari fleet movement took priority because it was confirmed." The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Emergency lighting activated as several systems temporarily failed. "Status report," demanded Shorin. "The anomaly is generating massive gravitational waves," Nalori reported, her crystalline form vibrating with stress frequencies. "Each emergence causes a cascading distortion effect. If this continues, the station's structural integrity will be compromised within 20 minutes. Chen's communicator chirped again. "Commander, engineering team reporting. We've analyzed the Void Dancer vessels. They appear to be generating their own localized space-time bubbles. That's how they're surviving the transition intact." Hayes' eyes widened. That level of gravitational control, it would explain how they managed to subjugate the Fricari so quickly. "Subjugate," Trell repeated, horror dawning on his features. Chen nodded grimly. "That's our working theory. The Fricari aren't just fleeing, they're being herded, like predators being driven by a larger predator." On the view screen, more Void Dancer ships continued to emerge from the anomaly. Behind them came the first of the Fricari vessels, massive, brutal shapes scarred with fresh battle damage. Their movements were erratic, desperate, nothing like the methodical hunters humans had faced before. "They're not stopping," Nalori observed tensely. "The Void Dancers are driving the Fricari directly toward Council space. It's a hunting strategy," Chen realized aloud. "Drive your prey toward a barrier, then close in from behind." "Where the barrier?" Captain Vex concluded, the implications settling like ice in his stomach. Admiral Shorin turned to Chen, military pragmatism overriding any lingering suspicion. "What are our options?" Chen studied the tactical display, mind racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. "The Defender has experimental countermeasures against spatial distortion, but nothing tested against technology this advanced. Our best option is immediate evacuation of the station and retreat to defensible positions deeper in Council space." "Retreat." Shorin's military pride was evident in his tone. "Strategic withdrawal," Chen corrected firmly. "We need time to analyze their capabilities and combine our technological knowledge. Fighting now, unprepared, would be suicide." The station rocked again, alarms blaring as structural support beams began to fail under the gravitational stress. "We don't have much time," Captain Vex urged. "The evacuation vessels can be ready in 10 minutes. Chen hesitated, then made a decision that would alter the course of human and council relations forever. "The Defender will provide covering fire. We'll position between the station and the emerging fleet to buy you time." "That's a suicide mission," Trell protested. "Your vessel, while impressive, cannot stand against those numbers." "We don't intend to fight them directly," Chen replied. "Just distract them. The Defender is equipped with prototype technology designed to disrupt spatial manipulation. If we can destabilize the anomaly, it might buy us all the time we need to retreat and regroup." Hayes looked alarmed. "Commander, the Crucible device has never been field-tested. The energy backlash could destroy the Defender." "Then we'll have to get it right the first time," Chen stated with grim determination. She turned to Shorin and Trell. "Get your people out. We'll handle this." As Chen and her team prepared to return to their shuttle, Captain Vex caught her arm. "You came here to warn us, knowing this might happen. Why risk your ship, your crew, for a galactic council you just met?" Chen's expression softened briefly. "Because this isn't about the Council or Earth or any single species anymore. If these Void Dancers can control space itself and are driving the Vrikari like cattle, then none of us stands a chance alone." She glanced at the view screen, where the bizarre ships continued to emerge from impossible space. "Humanity learned the hard way that the galaxy isn't safe, but maybe together we can change that." As Chen turned to leave, a final, massive tremor shook the station. On the view screen, something new began to emerge from the spatial anomaly. A structure so vast it defied comprehension, its surface rippling with energy patterns that hurt the eye to observe. "What is that?" whispered Trell. No one had an answer. But as evacuation alarms blared throughout the station, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The rules of galactic power had just been rewritten, and survival would depend on how quickly humans and the Council could adapt to the new reality emerging from the depths of twisted space. The evacuation proceeded with desperate efficiency. Council shuttles streamed away from the station as the massive structure continued to emerge from the spatial anomaly. Commander Chen and her team raced back to the Defender, leaving Captain Vex to coordinate the final evacuation groups. Aboard the Defender, the bridge hummed with controlled chaos as the crew prepared both offensive systems and the experimental Crucible device. "Status report," Chen demanded as she took command, her uniform still rumpled from the rushed shuttle flight. "Crucible is charging at 70%, reported Lieutenant Wilson from the weapons station. Estimated time to full capacity is 4 minutes. We don't have 4 minutes, Singh countered from tactical. The spatial anomaly is expanding exponentially. Gravitational shear will tear the station apart in less than 3. Chen studied the tactical display, where the mysterious structure was now nearly half emerged from the anomaly. Its surface continued to ripple with impossible geometries, defying conventional analysis. "What about the Council evacuation?" 87% complete, Rodriguez reported, but several diplomatic vessels are still docked, including the Vozarian flagship carrying Ambassador Trell. Chen made her decision. "Move us between the station and the anomaly. Defensive screens at maximum. Divert auxiliary power to forward shields." The Defender surged forward, its engines flaring as it took position to shield the station from the worst of the gravitational distortions. The massive human battleship, designed to fight the dreaded Vrikari, now seemed small and fragile against the cosmic forces being unleashed. "Commander," Dr. Hayes called from the science station, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "I'm detecting communication patterns in the energy fluctuations from the Void Dancer vessels." "They're talking to each other." "Not exactly. The pattern suggests they're receiving instructions from that." She pointed to the enormous structure still emerging from twisted space. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "It's a command vessel. Or something worse," Hayes whispered. The defender shuddered violently as gravitational waves crashed against its shields. Warning lights flashed across multiple stations. Shields holding at 62%, Singh reported. But we can't take much more of this. On the main view screen, they watched as the last Council shuttles finally detached from the station. Admiral Shorin's flagship remained nearby, ignoring Chen's repeated orders to retreat to safety. Crucible at 92%, Wilson announced. Ready to deploy on your command. Chen opened a channel to Shorin's vessel. Admiral, we're about to attempt to disrupt the anomaly. The energy backlash will be extreme. You need to withdraw immediately. Shorin's face appeared on the communication screen, his expression determined. Negative, Commander. My vessels will provide additional covering fire. This isn't conventional combat, Chen argued. The Crucible manipulates spacetime itself. If it works, the reaction will cascade throughout the local region. If it fails, she left the consequences unspoken. Then we die together, Shorin replied simply. Or succeed together. Isn't that the alliance you proposed? Before Chen could respond, Dr. Hayes called out in alarm. Commander, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup within the command structure. They're preparing to fire something. The tactical display shifted to show energy patterns concentrating at the front of the half-emerged structure, coalescing into a pulsing orb of distorted spacetime. Crucible at 98%, Wilson reported tensely. It won't be enough, Hayes warned. Whatever they're charging, it's orders of magnitude beyond our calculations. Chen surveyed her bridge crew, seeing determination mingled with fear on every face. These were the best of humanity, veterans who had faced the Fracari and survived. They had come here to warn the Council, to forge an alliance against a dangerous galaxy. Now they stood as the last line of defense against something even more terrifying. New plan, she announced. Rodriguez, transmit all our data on the Void Dancers to Admiral Shorin's vessel. Include complete schematics for the Crucible device. Singh, plot a direct course toward the command structure. Her officers stared at her in shock as they realized what she was proposing. Commander, Singh began. At that range, the Crucible would destroy us along with it. Chen finished. I know, but the energy release would be magnified tenfold, enough to collapse the anomaly and prevent whatever weapon they're charging from firing. A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the alarms still blaring throughout the ship. If we do this, Chen continued quietly, the Council will have time to prepare, to study our data and develop countermeasures. Humanity will have time to mobilize its fleets. She looked each officer in the eye. This was always a one-way mission. We just didn't know it until now. No one objected. No one needed to speak the words of agreement. Instead, each officer turned to their station, preparing for their final actions. Course plotted, Singh reported. Engines ready. Crucible at full charge, added Wilson. Detonation sequence programmed. Chen opened a final channel to Shorin's vessel. Admiral, we're going in. Use the data we've transmitted. Save what you can. Shorin's expression showed newfound respect tinged with regret. The Council will remember this, Commander. Earth will not stand alone against whatever comes next. Chen nodded once, then closed the channel. All ahead full. The Defender surged forward, directly toward the heart of the emerging threat. The Void Dancer vessels moved to intercept, their weapons charging, but they were too slow. The human battleship plunged past them, dragging straight for the massive command structure. 30 seconds to impact. Singh counted down. Dr. Hayes suddenly jerked upright at her console. Commander, I'm detecting a new signal pattern from the structure. It's a language. They're attempting communication. On screen, Chen ordered. The view screen flickered, displaying patterns of light and shadow that gradually coalesced into recognizable forms. Not words, not exactly, but concepts transmitted directly into their minds. Error. Misidentification. Containment PROTOCOO. What does that mean? Rodriguez asked, voicing everyone's confusion. Hayes worked frantically at her console. They're not attacking us. They're containing the Vrikari, the spatial anomaly, the gravitational weapons. It's all designed to trap and neutralize the Vrikari fleet. 15 seconds to impact, Singh reported. Chen stared at the message, understanding dawning. Abort the crucible. Full reverse thrust. The Defender's engine screamed in protest as they suddenly reversed direction, the ship shuddering under the strain. Warning lights flashed across every station as systems approached critical failure. Crucible deactivating, Wilson confirmed. But the momentum. Brace for impact, Chen shouted. The Defender hurtled toward the massive structure, slowing, but not enough to prevent collision. In the final seconds before impact, the structure's surface rippled again and opened, creating a controlled entry point that swallowed the human vessel whole. Inside was not destruction, but a vast, hollow space filled with swirling energy patterns and thousands of suspended Vrikari vessels, held immobile in stasis fields. The Defender's systems flickered, then stabilized as external power sources engaged, halting their momentum. On the view screen, new concepts formed. Quarantine Protocol, Species SC Assessment, Galactic Preservation, INATI. They're not conquerors, Hayes whispered in awe. They're caretakers. Additional information flowed into their minds. Images of the void dancers traveling between galaxies, identifying and containing species that threatened galactic balance. The Vrikari had been deemed too dangerous to evolve unchecked, their biological harvesting categorized as an extinction-level threat to multiple developing civilizations. They're a regulatory force, Chen realized. Cosmic peacekeepers. The flow of information continued, revealing that the Void Dancers had detected the Defender's approach to Council space and accelerated their containment timeline, fearing humans might inadvertently strengthen the Vrikari through technological exchange. SCCSMENT or EVI's ED. Cooperation POSSIBLE. New images appeared. The Defender and Council vessels working alongside Void Dancer ships, sharing technology and strategies. A vision of multiple species united not just for survival, but for maintaining balance throughout the galaxy. Slowly, the Defender was guided back out of the massive structure. As they emerged, they saw the spatial anomaly beginning to close, the remaining Void Dancer vessels retreating with their captured Vrikari fleet. One final message appeared before the connection faded. Return with REPRECNTKIVS. Alliance protocols INATIA. Ace, the anomaly sealed itself completely, leaving only ordinary space behind. Chen found her bridge crew staring at her in disbelief. Their suicide mission had somehow transformed into first contact with a species so advanced they traveled between galaxies as guardians of cosmic order. Commander, Rodriguez broke the silence. What just happened? Chen looked at the empty space where the anomaly had been, then at the Council ships now cautiously approaching the Defender. A smile slowly spread across her face, not the grim expression of a soldier prepared to die, but the wonder of an explorer facing an expanded universe. What happened, Lieutenant, is that humanity just got promoted from potential prey to potential ally. She straightened her uniform, composing herself before addressing the waiting Council vessels. And I think our first diplomatic task will be explaining to the Galactic Council why they should thank us for nearly getting them all killed. As communications channels opened with Admiral Shorin's flagship, Chen allowed herself a moment of pure, unexpected hope. The galaxy was still dangerous, still filled with threats like the Vrikari. But now they knew something equally important. It also contained protectors, and humanity had just inadvertently earned itself a seat at a much larger table. Behind her, Dr. Hayes studied the final data transmissions with growing excitement. "Commander," she said quietly, "there's something else. According to these coordinates, the Void Dancers aren't from our galaxy at all. The days following the Void Dancer encounter passed in a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings, scientific debriefings, and strategic planning sessions. The Council Station, despite severe structural damage from the gravitational distortions, had been stabilized enough to host the unprecedented gathering of human and Council representatives. Commander Chen stood at the viewport in what remained of the observation deck, watching repair drones swarming around the station's damaged sections. The Defender floated nearby, its hull still bearing scorch marks from the journey through the anomaly. Admiral Shorin joined her, his normally stern expression softened with something approaching respect. "Your engineers work quickly," he remarked, nodding toward the human repair teams assisting with the station's reconstruction. "Our structural specialists estimated 3 weeks for repairs. Your people say it can be done in 5 days." Chen smiled slightly. "Necessity breeds innovation, Admiral. After the Vakari War, rapid repair capabilities became a priority for our fleet." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, both contemplating the changed reality they now faced. The immediate threat had passed, but the revelation of the Void Dancer's existence and their role as intergalactic peacekeepers had fundamentally altered the political landscape of known space. "The Council votes tomorrow on your proposal," Shorin said finally. "A joint expedition to the coordinates provided by the Void Dancers. And your position." Shorin turned to face her directly. "I was skeptical when you first arrived in your battleship, Commander. I believed you were either exaggerating the threats beyond our space or using them as a pretext for military advantage." He paused. "I was wrong. My recommendation to the Council will be full support of the expedition, with joint command structure." Chen nodded her thanks. From a military officer like Shorin, this represented significant trust. "And the technology-sharing agreements. Foes face more resistance," he admitted. "Some Council members fear giving humans access to our propulsion systems and energy matrices, even after we provided complete schematics for the Crucible. Old prejudices die hard, Commander. For 3,000 years, the Council has been the most advanced civilization in known space. Adjusting to the idea of partnership rather than patronage will take time." Their conversation was interrupted by Rodriguez and Ambassador Trell, who approached with datapads in hand. "The preliminary treaty is drafted," Trell announced, his blue skin flushed with excitement. 17 articles of cooperation, including joint defense protocols, scientific exchange programs, and mutual aid provisions. Rodriguez handed Chen a datapad. "Earth's provisional government has ratified our authority to sign, Commander." "They're excited about the possibilities." Chen scanned the document, a sense of surreal accomplishment washing over her. When they had embarked on this mission, they'd hoped merely to warn the Council of the Vakari threat. Now they were establishing the framework for an interspecies alliance backed by entities from beyond their galaxy. "The science teams have made progress with the Void Dancer data," Dr. Hayes reported, joining their group. Her eyes were bright with the fervor of discovery, dark circles beneath them, testifying to sleepless nights analyzing the transmitted information. "Their technology doesn't violate physics as we understand it. It just operates at a level we hadn't considered possible. They manipulate the fabric of space-time with the same precision we manipulate matter." "Can we reproduce any of it?" Shorin asked. Hayes exchanged a glance with Nalori, who had become her close collaborator over the past days. The crystalline science officer chimed softly before speaking. "Not directly, no. But understanding their principles has already helped us identify improvements to both human and Council technologies. Our joint team has developed a prototype shield system that can withstand 60% more gravitational stress than previous designs. From adversaries to allies to innovation in less than a week," Chen mused. "Imagine what we could accomplish in a year." Captain Vex approached, carrying a ceremonial box emblazoned with the Council insignia. "Commander Chen, the Emergency Defense Committee has reached a unanimous decision. In recognition of your actions during the crisis, you have been granted the rank of honorary captain within the Council fleet." He opened the box, revealing an intricate medallion. This is only the third time in Council history this honor has been bestowed on a non-member species. Chen accepted the medallion with genuine surprise. I'm honored, Captain. Though I was simply doing my duty. Your duty included being willing to sacrifice your vessel and crew to protect a station full of aliens you'd just met, Vext pointed out with a wry smile. The Council recognizes exceptional courage regardless of species. As the impromptu ceremony concluded, Lieutenant Singh approached with urgent news. Commander, long-range sensors have detected a new signal at the edge of the system. It matches the Void Dancer communication pattern. The atmosphere immediately tensed. Chen straightened, instinctively shifting back into command mode. Are they returning already? The coordinates suggested we had at least 2 months to prepare an expedition. It's not a vessel, Commander, Singh clarified. It's a communication buoy, similar to our deep space relays, but utilizing their space-time manipulation technology. It's transmitting a message on frequencies calibrated specifically for human and Council communication systems. They left us a mailbox, Hayes realized with wonder. A direct line of communication. The group moved quickly to the command center, where technicians worked to decode and display the transmission. As the message took form on the main screen, a hushed silence fell over the room. Evaluation co-news. Par ilaneneri assessment. Poesita. Images followed. Star charts marking territories throughout the galaxy where other civilizations existed, some under Void Dancer protection, others developing independently. The message continued, Galactic co-ability-io and expanding. Human Council Alliance invite. Representatives expected. 8 designated CO or DIATES. The final portion of the message showed a vast space station, unlike anything they had ever seen, inhabited by dozens of different species from multiple galaxies. It's an invitation, Ambassador Trell whispered, to join something even larger than we imagined. A Galactic United Nations, Rodriguez suggested, awe evident in his voice. Admiral Shorin studied the images with careful consideration. Or a Galactic Defense Force. Perhaps both, Chen offered. The Void Dancers clearly value both cooperation and security. She turned to Hayes. How many other civilizations are indicated on those charts? Hayes worked quickly with Nalori, counting the marked regions. At least 37 distinct territories, spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. 37 civilizations. Trell repeated in wonder. The Council thought itself alone except for primitive developing worlds. Now we learn we're merely one community among dozens, all potentially facing threats like the Vrikari. Shorin added pragmatically. Chen studied the invitation, mind racing with implications. This changes everything. We need to accelerate our preparations, expand the joint expedition team. She turned to Shorin and Trell. The Defender was designed for extended deep space missions. We can modify the science deck to accommodate Council representatives and launch within 2 weeks. The Council may need more time to select appropriate delegates. Trell cautioned. Time may be a luxury we don't have. Chen countered. If these charts are accurate, we've been living in a galaxy far more complex and dangerous than either humans or the Council realized. The sooner we understand our place in it, the better our chances of survival. The discussion continued late into the station's artificial night, plans forming and expanding as humans and Council members worked together with newfound purpose. Chen eventually excused herself, retreating to a quiet observation blister to collect her thoughts. Earth had sent the Defender to make first contact with the Council, hoping to find allies against the Vrikari threat. Instead, they had stumbled into something far greater, a galaxy teeming with civilizations, some benevolent, some predatory, all connected through the oversight of intergalactic peacekeepers. It was humbling and exhilarating in equal measure. Lieutenant Wilson found her there, gazing out at the stars with a contemplative expression. The crew's wondering, he said without preamble, are we really going to that coordinates? Meeting these Void Dancers on their terms. Chen nodded slowly. Someone has to, and the Defender has already survived one impossible encounter with them. Some of the crew are nervous, Wilson admitted. Others are excited. Either way, they're with you, Commander. And what about you, Lieutenant? Wilson considered the question, looking out at the vast field of stars. When I joined the fleet, I wanted to protect Earth from threats like the Fricari. I never imagined we'd be representing humanity to a coalition of species from multiple galaxies. A slow smile spread across his face. My grandfather used to say that sailors were the first diplomats. Looks like spacers are following that tradition. Chen returned the smile. We'll need to be both diplomats and defenders where we're going. As Wilson departed, Chen remained at the viewport, watching as a council vessel and a human transport ship conducted joint maneuvers, their movements increasingly coordinated with each practice run. The sight crystallized something in her mind. Humanity had emerged from the Fricari War, believing itself alone against a hostile universe, forced to build battleships like the Defender just to survive. The Council had existed for millennia, believing itself to be the pinnacle of civilization, benevolently overseeing developing worlds. Both had been wrong, and perhaps that was the greatest gift the Void Dancers had given them. The humility to recognize their place in a much larger community, and the opportunity to join it as equals rather than as conquerors or victims. In 3 days, the Defender would depart with its mixed crew of humans and council representatives, venturing toward the coordinates where the first official delegation to the Galactic Coalition would be received. They would represent not just Earth or the Council, but a new alliance forged through crisis and revelation. The Defender had arrived at the Council station as a warship, bearing the scars of humanity's bitter lessons about survival in a dangerous galaxy. It would depart as something more. An embassy ship, carrying the hopes of multiple civilizations toward a future none of them had imagined possible just days before. Chen touched the Council medallion now pinned to her uniform, a tangible symbol of the unexpected bridges being built. The first encounter between a human battleship and the Galactic Council had nearly ended in catastrophe. Instead, it had opened the door to something extraordinary. As repair drones continued their work outside the viewport, their lights tracing patterns against the backdrop of stars, Chen allowed herself a moment of quiet optimism. The galaxy was still full of dangers like the Fricari, but it was also full of wonders like the Void Dancers and potential allies like the Council. Humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and for the first time since the Fricari War, that journey held more promise than peril. Tomorrow would bring diplomatic challenges, technological hurdles, and the daunting task of preparing for an unprecedented expedition. But tonight, watching human and council ships moving in harmony against the canvas of space, Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Alliance vessel Defender allowed herself to believe that the most important mission of her career might not be fighting the next war, but preventing it. The greatest gift the Void Dancers had given them, the humility to recognize their place in a much larger community, and the opportunity to join it as equals rather than as conquerors or victims. In 3 days, the Defender would depart with its mixed crew of humans and council representatives, venturing toward the coordinates where the first official delegation to the Galactic Coalition would be received. They would represent not just Earth or the Council, but a new alliance forged through crisis and revelation. The Defender had arrived at the Council station as a warship, bearing the scars of humanity's bitter lessons about survival in a dangerous galaxy. It would depart as something more. An embassy ship, carrying the hopes of multiple civilizations toward a future none of them had imagined possible just days before. Chen touched the Council medallion now pinned to her uniform, a tangible symbol of the unexpected bridges being built. The first encounter between a human battleship and a Galactic Council had nearly ended in catastrophe. Instead, it had opened the door to something extraordinary. As repair drones continued their work outside the viewport, their lights tracing patterns against the backdrop of stars, Chen allowed herself a moment of quiet optimism. The galaxy was still full of dangers like the Fricari, but it was also full of wonders like the Void Dancers and potential allies like the Council. Humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and for the first time since the Fracari War, that journey held more promise than peril. Tomorrow would bring diplomatic challenges, technological hurdles, and the daunting task of preparing for an unprecedented expedition. But tonight, watching human and Council ships moving in harmony against the canvas of space, Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Alliance vessel Defender allowed herself to believe that the most important mission of her career might not be fighting the next war, but preventing it.